one of the best marketing and salespeople in the world. You don't need money to start a business. And people don't understand how to build a business. And I've got a following where we help people's dreams happen. Kind of a Mr. Beast for business.
Why do you think you were able to build this very successful business?
The top salespeople don't take no for an answer. A lot of people don't agree with this statement I'm about to make. This work hard culture is just what's hard work about it? You know, if you actually think about the people that are actually working hard, they're not making much money. Working hard is a dangerous mindset. Money isn't the reason people do things. Pain is the reason people do things. If they're not making ends meet and they're struggling, they need to change. They'll learn.
Why don't you like?
It's just a bad business. And I think if I was Prime Minister, I'd ban accommodation, food, electricity, water. They shouldn't be this expensive. It makes it impossible for people to live. Yeah, England's broken right now. I just want to fix it.
Okay, so one of your major successes is selling fluid, obviously, to PwC. And I know you can't say how much you sold it for, but, you know, reading between the lines, I imagine it was multi-millions, if not tens of millions. And I wanted to go through your journey with that business. I think it's very, very interesting. So if we start with, why did you start Fluid in the first place?
Combination of reasons. I think the shallow one was I met a really talented graphic designer who, when I met her, she was totally undercharging for her work. And I said to her, "You're undercharging for your work." And she said, "Great. I don't like talking to clients and I don't like selling too hard." So I said I'd help her get better rates. And it kind of started there actually initially. And the truth is I fancied her. You're not allowed to say this anymore. I know you're not allowed to say this anymore. But I did. I also liked her and I wanted to help her. And in the end, I told her what she needed to do to market the business properly. And she just kind of said, "Well, why don't you just do that and team up with me on this?" At the time, I had a million other opportunities, but none with someone I fancied. So we teamed up and we started the business. And luckily, we worked together for 15 years building that company. Wow. And then we had a baby and we got married. So we've been together 23 years now. So it was a good outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. In all ways, obviously.
Yeah, you're not allowed to talk like this anymore for some reason, which is, some respects I understand, in other respects is a bit of a shame. I definitely helped her because I fancied her, but I know that's not allowed.
Well, yeah. What were you doing at the time?
I had a few investments. I had a small logistics business and I was consulting, doing a few consultancy projects, marketing related. And yeah, so just I had a bit of an easy life, to be honest. When I did team up with Helen, I didn't realize how tough the creative business was, actually. It just seemed fun at the beginning. Just you get a client that pays you to come up with some creative ideas. I used to do very much on the consultancy side. So I just verbally say ideas and get paid for it. Executing on those ideas was a lot harder, a lot more micromanagement. And a wonderful business in the end, very scalable and very sellable, but not easy to build because it's service based and you have clients and you have to make those clients happy and get more clients. And then you need talented people to help you with the more clients you get. So the whole process is quite painful to build it, but once you built it, it's quite hard to compete with it, which is good.
Interesting. So it started out as just graphic design. What were the sort of suite of services that you ended up offering?
Well, technically we launched as Fluid Design and Marketing. And I think that's what initially made us a bit unique. We weren't just design. Right. So most companies were either marketing companies or they were design companies and they weren't connected. So we were the first company in Asia to really bring, for example, a digital creative idea as a marketing idea, let's say a microsite for United Airlines, alongside an ad brand campaign. So that was unique. Often the agencies that we were competing against weren't bringing marketing and digital into their creative pitch. They might design an advert or a marketing campaign, but it was very generic. And then they give it to a bus company or give it to an underground company and they'd apply it. We were one of the first companies that kind of combined the concept of like marketing initiatives and marketing ideas being first and the creative then linking to that idea. So it was a little bit different. And in the end, we moved maybe in 15 years, kind of 360 to back to where we started. We were really competing with people like McKinsey.
Yeah.
consultancy firms that
Okay.
would charge, £1 million for ideas and not do any of the execution. So we did something in between towards the end, but the big money really came from the consultancy side.
So what sort of clients were you typically working? You were based in Hong Kong, weren't you? And what were the businesses that you were typically serving?
Well, at the beginning, I had very different clients, different types of clients, and most clients came to us because we had the marketing side. The design side was not valued as much. This is 20 years ago, right, when I started it. So
Yeah.
in Asia anyway, design now has become very important. But back then, it was just beginning of the kind of brand matters kind of movement in China. And so in the early days, we had international clients like Credit Suisse, and CNN was one of my first big clients. And CNN's mandate was, we want to get into Asia more. What should we do? And so we came up with campaign ideas and marketing concepts to get CNN more known in Asia. And as the years went on, I diversified the business into smaller businesses. So we ended up helping a lot of small restaurant chains that were growing. And I then started getting into owning equity in some of these businesses. So it wasn't just a client paying us a fee. We had equity in the company we were helping. And then we moved into owning our own products. So like email marketing products and products that helped productivity within business. So then we were then selling products that we owned to our clients, not just servicing their creative and marketing initiatives. And then towards the end, really interesting development, all the brands in Asia then wanted to get into Europe and America. So brands in China wanting to make their way into America and Europe. So brands like Build Your Dream, the car company, wanting to be the biggest electric car company in the world, not just in China. So start to build out brands. I say it's quite an interesting transition. You probably can watch the movement of wealth from America and Europe, in particular Europe, into Asia, into China, into India, and how those brands and businesses built up in those markets and then wanted to move out into America and Europe.
It sounds like you guys were a conduit between sort of Western companies wanting to get in that part of the world and then Asian companies wanting to go elsewhere, which is interesting. You touched on one thing there that I think every marketing agency owner thinks about at some point, and that is an equity deal as opposed to just charging a fee or a retainer. Now, I've had conversations with a lot of agency owners and they will say things along the lines of, well, all the clients that are willing to give you equity, you don't actually want the equity, you want to charge a fee because their business isn't great. And then the ones where you do want equity, they're not willing to give it to you because they know they've got a great business and they'd rather just pay a fee. How did you sort of navigate that? And how did you convince, I assume, good clients to go for that sort of deal? And how did you think about it in terms of which clients to do that with and which ones to not do that with?
Yeah, certainly in the early years of doing that model, there's lots of pitfalls. I think the sweet spot for me was startups.
Okay.
So not established companies that were in trouble. That they would pay us, or because or they weren't companies I was particularly targeting. The companies that were succeeding, we worked with quite a lot, like CNN was doing very well. And people might hate that channel, but at that time they were the leading 24-hour news brand. And so I would earn the money from the brands that could afford it and just charge them, because CNN's not going to give us equity.
Yeah.
And then I would focus in on what were basically companies or founders that I think look like me or talk like me or work like me. Often they were Chinese though and living in Asia, but they would have just brilliant ideas and they were tenacious and they were going to make it work, and they just needed capital.
Okay.
But what is true then and is true now, most of those companies, when they're raising capital for marketing.
Right.
So if you can do the marketing, then capital, you're literally I can give them money, and then they can pay it back to me and my agency to do the marketing. So then you get a win-win, right? So my agency get my money because I give money to the company for the equity, and then they use my money to spend on my agency doing the work. So it wasn't profitable work, but it was very profitable when the equity became valuable. And so, but it was more, early stage businesses that had a lot of potential that didn't necessarily have a lot of capital, and they hadn't necessarily raised a lot of money. And even if they had, they didn't want to burn it if they could help it. They'd rather get at cost services or a partner they could trust that had skin in the game. Because certainly service companies, I mean, you pay us to do something, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, oh well, like it is what it is. I think if you have equity in the company, there is a different level of as a service company of effort, and the reward is unlimited as opposed to a fee, which is very annoyingly limited quite often.
I guess the flip side of that is it's risky, because if it's particularly if it's early stage, you could end up doing a lot of work and not collecting on that. Do you think for the companies you did that deal structure with, you ended up net better off than you would have been had you charged fees instead?
1,000,000%.
Okay.
So much more money in owning an equity in a successful startup, a tech company, for example, than getting a flat £1,000,000 fee from CNN.
Okay.
Like it's just, and it's reoccurring potential value as well. So, and relationships are more solid, whereas CNN every year can tender for a new service provider. And so, you just have, there's definitely risk to it. But, frankly, I was 25 years old and I just didn't care about money.
Okay.
I cared about building wealth, not money.
Okay.
And to me as well, the relationships that I built in backing those early companies, I mean, 3 of those people are billionaires today. So, wow. I don't think you could ever put a price on that relationship because you were there for them at the beginning.
Yeah.
And if you are there to support someone at the beginning of their journey, they know you're a true friend. I wasn't helping them or investing in them or providing a service to them because they were already billionaires. I'm doing it when they weren't. And I think that I also learned a lot because, I can only run one company. I'm not smart enough to run multiple companies at once.
Okay.
But, what I have been able to do by investing in other people's businesses is learn other ways of running a business. So I've seen 78 different ways to run a company. And that has been an invaluable, almost every time I've ever made an investment in a business, because as I got more wealthy, I put more capital into businesses. The thing I learned was it's like investing in your education. Yes, you lose money, but I just learned so much. Every time I've ever made an investment in a business, it's been like a real life MBA. And with a potential of a 100x or 1,000x return. Of course, I can also lose it all, but if you do an MBA, you lose it all. So what's the difference?
Okay, so I'll get back to my conversation in a second. Before I do a couple of things I want to quickly let you know about. I own a marketing agency, and if you're a marketer, business owner watching this, there are a couple of ways in which I could potentially help you. So firstly, I have a mentorship program. So if you want to learn how to get great results with Facebook ads, Instagram ads, etc., you can go ahead and check that out. Secondly, we have an agency that runs, creates, manages, and optimizes ad campaigns for our clients. So if you're a business owner thinking, I'd love to have an agency that can get me great results, we can do that for you. Again, there'll be a link in the video description below. So if you want to click on either of those, you can go through, book a free call with one of my team members to find out more. And hopefully we get a chance to work together. You mentioned another thing that I think a lot of agency owners think about, and that's using their marketing expertise and the resources they have to create other businesses, their own things. Hopefully not directly copying clients of theirs, although I have seen that done as well. You said you built email products and things like that. What made you decide to do that, and how did you think about that in terms of resourcing those versus obviously resourcing the client work?
Yeah, so I mean, I think when I look back, it's easy to sound like a genius, but I think at the time it was just, like business owners were always thinking about how can we make extra revenue.
Okay.
And so we would have a client and we'd finish the work, and I'd have 20 smart people sitting there, engineers that were working on, say, for example, a CNN campaign that are waiting for 3 weeks for the client to come back.
I see.
And give us feedback. So that team wants to be doing something, and equally, what an amazing resource to have sitting around. So we're like, wow, while we're waiting for them to come back to us, why don't we build an email marketing product? Or why don't we build ilove.com, which highlights every area in Asia that's worth having a good meal in? Let's have some fun, just build some stuff, like it was almost like entertainment for the team. And I made a mistake of drinking fizzy drink while coming on a podcast. Sorry. But the point is that a lot of the time it's not I'm a genius, let's do this product, like 37 Signals, that brand, but like those guys are clever, like they literally sat down and thought about it. I think the way it worked with me most of the time was we'd say, right, we finished that project for a client, what should we build, what should we do?
Okay.
And then there were the odd occasion where, and the email marketing one's a good example, where a client said to me one day, oh, I've got 28,000 emails, I don't have time to email them. I don't know how to get the emails out. What should I do? So I stupidly said, we'll help them. And then I realized there was no software out there at that time to send the emails out. I mean, even today, it's all patchy. It's getting better. Weirdly, I've just built a new email marketing service called Help Bank Campaign. So it's still a gap in the market for that stuff. I just built a new service that does this. But I think the problem even back then was that people didn't know how to do it. And I said yes to helping someone. And then I brought it back to my team, the 28,000 contacts, and said, how can we get this out? And at that time, you could only do it manually. So then my team were like, wow, okay, we can't do this manually.
No.
And let's build something. And so yeah.
You mentioned around working with really big clients like CNN. How do you go about getting a client that big?
Well, I think there's a few ways. That particular case, the Helen, who I teamed up with in the early days, had a relationship with someone who was working at Fortune magazine, and Fortune magazine were part of the CNN group. So Fortune magazine were happy with some work that Helen had done with my help, and then they recommended us to CNN. So recommendation is always a good way. And it doesn't make me sound particularly brilliant, because I think I'm one of the best marketing and salespeople in the world. If I'm arrogantly going to say it, I think I am. Okay. But in that particular example of CNN, it's because I knew Helen. And there is something to be said of just having. I never went to university. I left school at 15, but Helen went to university. So I sometimes say to people, you don't need to go to university. You just need to know someone that did. You don't need to spend 4 years building a network. You don't need a super boat or super yacht. You just need to know someone that's got one. It's partly like that sometimes. So Helen is a bit shy, so she wouldn't have necessarily said to Fortune magazine, will you please recommend someone else to us? So I said to Fortune magazine, anyone else in your group you think we can work with? And they're like, well, so I know CNN is struggling to find good marketing initiatives and creatives, so I'll recommend you there if you like. So in that particular case, it was them. However, when I started building Fluid like properly, not just to date Helen, we started to build out systems. And one of the things that I had done in my previous businesses, and I think it's important, is I made a list of the top 50 clients that would be transformational for our business, that could generate huge revenues for us, and that I wanted to work with, like clients I knew we could make a difference if they gave us a chance. And I wrote those 50 clients down. And I remember, it took me 9 years to get all 50 clients on board. And so there was no magic formula to it. Every single month, in some way, I would communicate with the brand I wanted to work with, and in particular, the people in those brands, whether it was to wish them a Merry Christmas or a Happy Chinese New Year, or to send them some insight article on their industry, or send them a weird tree. We sent them one year saying, put Fluid on it and it will do well, because that was the name of our agency, Fluid, right? So it just every month for 9 years, I would find a way to pleasantly persist them.
You managed to get all 50?
All 50.
That's incredible. You'd have thought someone surely would just not like you and out of those and decide they didn't want to work with you.
Don't get me wrong. I had times when I won them and then the people left and changed, or there wasn't any work for a while because their budgets were cut. But I managed to work with all 50. And, it's kind of, I think sales is just, the top salespeople, in my opinion, just don't take no for an answer. It's just, it's no now, or you haven't pitched it right, or you haven't found the thing that they need that you've got. You haven't built a deep enough relationship with them. That's what it is. So I just spent 9 years being consistent, persistent, polite, sharing, helping them without any expectation of anything in return, often fixing problems I saw in some of their products. Like one particular client, their website had some problems. We told them what to do. They didn't have time to fix it themselves. We fixed it for them free to help them. And then, they just never forget these things. And so it's a lot of goodwill, perseverance, passion. People always want a quick answer, simple recipe for sales, but I don't think there is one really. I think it's just persistence and professionalism and recommendations and referrals and reputation and all of those things wrapped up.
And a lot of those sorts of businesses, I imagine timing's just such a huge part. You just have to be there at the right time because it's when they're renewing and so-and-so's leaving or that contract's ended, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and in the service business in particular, you have to, that's why, one of the best things I ever did was actually we sent a little tree to all these prospect clients. And when you get a tree with a little pot, you don't throw it away.
Yeah.
So people put it on their desk and then they don't want it to die. So they water it every day and they look after it every day. That tree was probably the biggest reminder of fluid ever. So best investment ever was just sending all these prospects the tree. And then that would kind of, they couldn't not think of us when suddenly they needed to come up with a campaign to promote their new mobile phone or their latest flight offer,
That's great. I really like that. You said that after a while you switched or moved towards working with some smaller businesses. My agency, because most of the clients we get comes from my personal brand, typically tend to be smaller, medium-sized businesses. Now, most people in the agency space just want the biggest possible clients. Why did you, I think I got it right and you made that change. Why did you do that?
Yeah, it was more like an alternative strategy.
Okay.
So I had the big clients and I would go after the big clients. The top 50 were all big clients. But I also never liked it in the early days. We had 3 big clients and I was always thinking, uneasy at night. If we lost one of them, I'd have to get rid of a load of people.
Yeah.
And I hate going back. So my thinking was, get 10 small clients to counteract the one big client. And in part, it was also those 10 small clients can become big clients and you're there at the beginning. I mean, without picking on CNN aren't particularly loyal because they're big.
Yeah.
So if you perform, they'll carry on. If you don't, they'll find someone else. And not that a small company should keep on someone that's not performing, but small companies do tend to work with you and go with the highs and lows. I think Steve Jobs said the creative agency he first started working with at Apple was the company he always wanted to work with. And when Apple wasn't doing well, it's because they switched away from this company. So it was almost like spiritual for him, right? The loyalty and the energy, and they understood the brand in a way that no one else could because they were there at the beginning. So it was a diversification strategy as much as anything else. And also, big companies, like we gave some brilliant ideas to CNN that they never did. And so small companies, and it's true today, are willing to take some risks and do some fun stuff. And that keeps your staff, because when I first started the agency, I thought my business model was to win clients and look after clients. It wasn't. It was to look after the creative people. Right. It was to look after the brilliant marketeers and the strategists. If they left, there was no business. So in the end, my client was actually my team, not the client itself. In fact, towards the end, I think it was probably good that I left the business because clients were annoying me, and they weren't listening to people that knew what they were doing. And so you're like, why have you hired us and then not listened to us?
Yeah, I think every agency owner can sympathize with that one. That gets very frustrating.
So, I think there is an element of the big brands are risk averse. They're more likely to get disrupted because of it, and they're just scared to lose their job, so they'd rather not do something new. Whereas the small brands, disruptor brands, they've got nothing to lose, and they kind of try things that are cool, and that makes it fun to work on them. So it was a diversification of income, it was a diversification of risk, but it was also a strategy of just having a little bit more fun and having a little bit more freedom.
I also imagine that if CNN decide to not pay you for 180 days, what are you going to do? You just
that happens very often.
That's not fun, is it?
Yeah, and not. Again, CNN team might be listening to this at some point. I don't want to offend them, but all big brands are like that.
Yeah.
I've only ever worked with one big brand that doesn't play around with payment terms, and that is QuickBooks.
Really? Interesting.
They pay you on time.
Well, I suppose it makes sense given their business, right? If there was ever going to be, they want to making sure everything's up to date.
They paid me within 3 days of invoice.
Fab.
And so, and I remember thinking they understand the problem with cash flow of businesses, right? Because they were the largest account software company in the world. Yeah. And they know that if everyone waits 180 days, then everyone has to wait 180 days. It's like stupid.
Yes.
Everyone just pays on time, then everyone can pay on time. So
Yeah.
I think it's one of the biggest problems for businesses. Cash flow is what most businesses get crushed by, not sales.
I also think as a business that's paying another business's invoices, what an easy way to create goodwill. Get your invoices paid early. If they give you 30-day payment terms, pay it the day you get it or 2 days later, and they'll love you and go the extra mile. It's just the easiest way to get a bit of goodwill.
I always personally pay as soon as I get the invoice.
Yeah, same.
I don't wait for 60 days and all that rubbish. And although I have a lot of brand sponsorship partnerships, they do pay late. But I always pay everybody as soon as I get the invoice.
Yeah. How big did Fluid get in terms of headcount?
So we had a kind of tiered structure. The full-time headcount was 50,
Okay.
I think, but the freelance active was about 150.
Right.
So in
okay.
total,
Much
it was
bigger.
200, but fixed payroll 50 with 150 on part-time or freelance contracts.
Okay, so my agency, just for reference point, we're just shy of 50 people full-time headcount, but with not 150 extra freelance contractors, maybe 10 that do various things. I'm very fortunate in that I have a business partner that runs the operations side of the business, and I very much focus on media and bringing in clients and things along those lines. A lot of people, when it comes to running agencies, find it very stressful, and particularly at the size, if you've got 200 people in total. What was your structure like? Were you running the business? Did you have someone to run it for you? And if you were running it, or when you were running it, how did you find it from a stress and a workload standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I now have a team of 12 in my present business.
Yeah.
And I really love that number.
Okay.
It's like a little army, a little family. And I don't think you're allowed to call it a family. I think it's a football team.
Okay.
I'm allowed to call it a football team. So I really like 12, and the impact the 12 of us could have. I mean, we put a video out yesterday. They got 47 million views, just one video on TikTok.
Yesterday.
So
wow.
We can have a big impact with a small team, and I really think that's the future of businesses in general. I think headcount is not a sign of success, and I think it is sometimes a sign of inefficiencies in certain businesses. I mean, in the creative agency business today with AI, it's so much technology you can leverage. Headcount. Anyway, I think that aside, I think the way I would manage it personally, and I definitely had very stressful periods, especially around payroll, cash flow. But the people side, in the early years of Fluid, as I just mentioned, I was very much about like get the big clients on board. And as we had turnover of people, I realized that the client wasn't CNN. Like I mentioned earlier, I kind of switched it to like, okay, actually, it's Helen, the creative.
Yeah.
It's the people, the marketing person. My client is Helen, not CNN. So how can I help make them happier? And so when I made that switch, that psychological switch, life got a lot easier. And I think I started not thinking always about how to get a new client. And instead I thought about how can I make the life of the team better? And so from that point onwards in Asia, we won Creative Agency of the Year quite a few times, but the award I was most proud of was Cultural Agency of the Year. But everybody wanted to work with us. And I think that made life a lot easier, because if people want to work with you, then people that are in the company are grateful. And there's not this cold light of like, oh, I can go get a job at another company and get paid more. Or, we just had fun. We cared about each other in the business. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't without its problems. I'm not going to pretend that, it was perfect. People left. There were problems in the company. Someone stole the database once, with all sorts of awful things. But overall, I think the thing I learned was don't manage people, manage purpose. So, the purpose of the business wasn't to make money in the end. It made money. But the purpose of the business was to create a culture of stand up for the creatives, stand up for good ideas. Don't let clients steamroll you into their shitty ideas just because they're paying you. Doesn't mean they're right.
Yeah.
And I think that really galvanized the creative industry. And bear in mind, I'm talking 15 years ago in Hong Kong, where our head office was. There was very much a culture of like design wasn't respected. Marketing initiatives were very, very basic, literally like a billboard or a taxi ad.
Okay.
So, when we're talking about doing micro sites and digital competitions and those sorts of things, we had to fight to tell brands that we're right. Digital is the future. And we didn't let them steamroll us with, well, we'll do a billboard because I won't lose my job. But we're like, well, then we don't want to work with you, because if you just want to do a billboard, just use Ogilvy or go, you don't need us.
Yeah.
And then that was quite liberating.
What do you think about the trend now to try and build marketing agencies remotely? I tried to do that initially, and we did that for a few years, and honestly, it was a nightmare. So we've now got an office. The majority of people work in that office. We have some roles that I think can work well remote, video editors, graphic designers, where you can quickly and easily see what they're doing and they can contribute to the team. But anyone that is sort of communicating with clients or sales team, for example, we've got in-house now. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I should probably frame up what I'm doing today, because it may become relate to what I've done in the past with the agency business.
Yep.
So I'm doing two things. I've got social media channels. I've got 5 million followers online, and I'm educating people for free about business. I'm kind of trying to do an updated Dragon's Den. I think Dragon's Den's out of date. I don't think it really educates people, but a lot of people get their business knowledge from Shark Tank and Dragon's Den. They think it's the guy with money's got the power, and you go and you pitch your dream and it's a yes or a no, right? And it's not like that. You don't need money to start a business, and people don't understand how to build a business. So one part of my business model today is, I guess, a social media influencer, which I kind of hate the term, but it is what it is. And I've got a following where we help people's dreams happen. And on the other side, I've built a platform called Help Bank that has 150,000 members, all pledged to help each other. And the idea is that if you want help, you go on this platform, you ask for help, and you get it for free. And if you can help, you then help people for free as well. We kind of take out the transactional lifestyle that's been built up around give and take. I'll help you if you help me. Only if you pay me will I help you. Well, that means everyone has to charge everyone, right? So I wanted to build something different. That's what Help Bank is. And I explain that because it actually has a lot of similarity to the agency world in so many ways. We make content. We come up with creative ideas. And so when you ask me about the office kind of thing, where my mind goes to is like a lot of value in Fluid was the fact that the creatives would all sit together and brainstorm ideas. But in reality, after that, they go away and sit on their computers and not talk to each other all day. So I think that there is a hybrid. And I'm doing that today.
Right.
So once a week, me and the team all get together and we brainstorm, and some of us work on our laptops, even though we might not be talking to each other all the time, but we hang out and we connect and we throw ideas and we brainstorm things that are a bit more complicated and not easy to cover in a Slack channel.
Yeah.
And it's really nice. And then, every single one of us just then goes off and works from home or works from a beach, or my colleague Callum just spent 6 weeks in Bali sitting on a beach. So I think there's a hybrid model works. But you have to have a very trusting team, and you definitely need to have time together. So I bought a massive house, so that I bought the house deliberately because my whole team can come here and hang out.
Right.
Sometimes come here with their partners and stay. Like it literally is just a massive house we all hang out in. But I guess you could call it an office, but I don't. And then I also bought a staircase in Twickenham in London where we sometimes all hang out there too.
Okay.
So there's two spots we can generally hang out together.
Yeah.
And so I think, in short, I really like the new world we're living in. I'm just writing a book at the moment, and I was just before this call writing a whole chapter on like office culture. And I do think that in the agency world, when I started, the office was very important. The clients would come to your office and make a judgment call whether or not they were going to give you their £5 million a year contract, just based on what they saw in the office, right? Was it real? Were you legitimate? What was happening? Was it cool? Did they, when they went there to brainstorm their business, was it exciting and fun? So we had a gym, and we had, all you can drink vending machine, and we had big whiteboards you could draw on, and table tennis tables and all of it.
Yeah.
And in that time in history, I think it was absolutely perfect. But I think today, if I was building an agency today, I just have a really cool hangout hub where once a week people can hang out together if they want, as opposed to an office. Now, it does depend on the work. There are some, like, for example, the editors on my side, I've got 4 editors. They have to sit together sometimes when they're working on certain projects, because the file share alone, if you're doing it remote, is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Whereas you can airdrop it and it's all quick. So sometimes it's literally file functionality as opposed to needing an office. So anyway, that's my kind of long answer to your quite simple question.
No, that's interesting. I certainly want to dig more into some of the stuff you're doing now. Just going back to Fluid, you sold. How did that come about? Was that something you actively sought, or was an offer made?
So I didn't actually actively seek it, but 2 years prior to selling, I did hire a really amazing CEO.
Okay.
And to get him on board, I did a little white lie. I said to him, this agency is going to be massive and a big company is going to come along and buy it.
Okay.
And when I said it to him, I felt a bit like, did I really think that was going to happen? Did I really think that was going to happen? Or was it just going to be a really profitable business that we're all going to make money out of? And if I'm being honest, and I've said this to him at the time, I was like, it could happen because he's so good. He's such a good CEO. I did think it was possible, but equally there was a part of me that thought it's probably just going to be a really profitable company that no one will want to buy.
Yeah.
And called it manifestation, or we planted a seed that day. I don't know what. 2 years later from hiring him, it happened. And it happened because I think if you want to sell a company, a lot of people don't agree with this statement I'm about to make. But I think if you want to sell a company, I think you should not want to sell it. That's the irony.
Okay.
The best way to sell a company is not want to sell it. So, we all know the story of Mark Zuckerberg and Yahoo trying to buy Facebook for $1 billion at the beginning, right? It's like, nah,
yeah.
I don't know how old he was at the time, 23 or something. $1 billion. All right, I'll do something else. Give me that. But there's something really powerful in just not needing it. I think he said, what would I do with $1 billion anyway? And in fairness, when PwC came along, the initial conversation was actually about working together on and servicing clients.
Right.
And I think, they're a very clever company. They're the largest accounts company in the world, right? So they went away and they did the numbers, and they were like, yeah, we can collaborate with this company. They're going to make so much money. We should just buy them.
Right. Okay.
So I think that's kind of the logic.
Yeah.
And I have to say, most agencies get bought by WPP or like within the industry, right?
Yeah.
Havas or one of these existing incumbents buy it. It was really refreshing. I'd had offers from those other types of agencies, but they're just buying up talent and cash flow.
Yeah.
Whereas PwC were building a whole new practice. It's a very different thing. So, it was actually a wonderful experience to deal with them, to deal with the whole process of selling. They were very fair and very generous with the payout. They didn't make me lock into an earnout either.
No earnout.
One of the lucky things that I did, I really was the principal marketing person for the company.
Yeah.
And once the company was purchased by PwC, I was actually dispensable because they had the client relationships.
Oh, I
see. The one
see.
thing they didn't really need was someone selling. They've got all those relationships. So that's actually really good. For me, I was like, they offered me to stay on and stuff, but I wanted to move on to other projects. So it worked out. I didn't have to do an earnout, which is another thing that a lot of people get caught on, right? They have to do an earnout for 3 years and all that sort of stuff. And I really couldn't imagine working for someone.
Yeah.
So that was, I'm glad I didn't have to make that decision.
That's really interesting, because I've always assumed that my agency is not sellable because, as I said, most of our clients come through my social followings and my personal brand. But I never considered that you could have a buyer that's actually not interested in the client acquisition side of your business and wants the infrastructure of the talent and things like that.
Yep. People like Salesforce, they don't need your help with sales, do they?
Yeah.
But if they want to build out a particular practice, as PwC did, then, I actually love the whole, what I call it, vertical sales, right? It's not what you think that's going to buy you buys you. And a lot of people just go down the traditional route. I don't know. I was just helping someone recently who has a fish and chip business, and they're looking to sell their 3 fish and chip shops to someone that has 6 fish and chip shops.
Okay.
And there's a part of me is like, actually, you know what you should do? You should sell your fish and chip shop to a farmer who's making potatoes.
Interesting.
It's just, it's just thinking a little differently. The farmer isn't making much margin on their potatoes. I'm sure that they'd rather be selling to their own fish and chip shop than to Tesco's.
Yeah.
So, and they don't have the knowledge to do their own fish and chip shop. Whereas the other guys, like, I could buy yours, but I could just open up 3 of my own. It'll take me a bit longer. So all they're really doing when they buy yours is saving a bit of time, but they're not buying talent or infrastructure knowledge, right? So you're not getting as much value, not extracting as much value for your business when you do it that way.
Why do you think you were able to build this very successful business? Obviously, so many people try it and don't succeed. What's the difference there?
Luck plays a huge part in business. I think it's an underrated word. And a lot of people don't say luck because it makes them not look as smart.
Yeah.
If I say I was lucky, you're like, oh, I won't buy his book then. Just luck, wasn't it? It's got nothing to do to me, has he?
Just one word.
But equally, on the other side of it, I think luck is hackable. But luck plays a huge part, right? I mean, one of the sayings I really hate is the harder you work, the luckier you get. That is not true.
Okay.
So if anyone's listening and thinks that's true, they've been brainwashed.
Right.
It's not true.
Why is it not true?
I made the most amount of money when I'm not working hard, when I'm hiring talented people to do the work, for example. And in reality, this work hard culture is just bullshit. And the smartest people, the people that are making the most amount of money are on the golf course right now.
Do you not think people have to go through that phase of hustling all the time in order to get to the point where they could be on the golf course?
We're stupid and we think that's the way to go.
So you don't think that's necessary?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, just some people are super smart like Warren Buffett, and he knows just, don't have any meetings, sit and read, have fun in your, reading what you want to read, and then apply that knowledge in a scalable way. What's hard work about it? The people like, again, the harder you work, the luckier you get. Well, if it was true, every nurse in the UK would be a millionaire.
Right, yeah.
If you actually think about the people that are actually working hard, they're not making much money. In fact, myself included, whenever I used to take time out and have a holiday, which I would do religiously and take time out, I had my best ideas that made the most amount of money.
Yeah.
If I'm plugging away in the same old shit, working hard, and I don't take a week off to think about it, then I don't grow. I'm just, it's a really interesting phenomenon where especially agency people, I've seen it, like, let's work 20 hours a day, and then the agency will work. Well, actually, working hard has more to do with failure than success. In burnout, people can't do it anymore. They drop the ball. They make mistakes. Like, I just, again, this is all in my new book, so you're not going to need to buy it now because this is a big part of it. Like, I really believe that working hard is a dangerous mindset, and actually doesn't create wealth, especially the most important wealth, which is health, right?
So you think dangerous literally from what it can do to your health standpoint?
Yeah, I think mental health, physical health, and frankly, again, everybody must have had this experience. If you go on a walk right now, don't work hard, go on a walk for 1 hour, you'll have a brilliant idea for your business. But if you just keep working right now on your business, you probably won't have that brilliant idea.
Sorry, I was going to say, I definitely agree with you. Where I feel like I am at now and have been for a few years, I do wonder if I could have ever got there without the hard work at the beginning. I think, and if I provide a bit of context around that.
You're living in survival bias, right?
Right, okay.
You have survival bias. And so do I, by the way.
Okay.
You have survival bias, and basically that means what you've done and it's worked, therefore you think that's the way to do it.
Right.
But the reality is, you have also learned not to work as hard because you can't keep going if you carried on like you were.
Yes, that's true.
So in reality, you've educated yourself. That's what's actually happened. So if you went back to your younger self and started again, in reality, if you had the same knowledge, you'd probably be more successful than you are now. But you don't know that because you haven't lived that. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with working hard, and I don't think that you shouldn't work hard. I'm just saying, don't buy the narrative. The harder you work, the luckier you get. Because the real truth, the nuance is, the harder you work, the more unhealthy you can potentially be as well. The harder you work, the more mistakes you can make. And the reality of what I've seen when it comes to hacking luck, it's kind of 3 steps to hacking luck. The first is, the more risk you take, the luckier you get. That is more true. So if you take a risk and invest in a company, if you take a risk and don't take a fee and take a percentage, the more risk you take, the more luckier you get. The second is, the more persistent you are, the luckier you get. And that's not hard work. Oh, party balloons. That's not hard work. For anyone listening on Spotify, there's party balloons flying around my face right now.
Yes.
I don't know what that's got to do with the podcast. But the point I'm making in a second is throwing me off my feet. This would have been a good clip if I hadn't got distracted. The second thing is definitely persistence, right? I mean, you've got to follow through.
Yeah.
And I think the third thing is purpose, like destination. If you know where you're going, most people don't. And it can't be revenue based. It's got to be mission based. Okay. So if you have those 3 things, you take more risk, you're persistent, and you know your destination, luck 100-folds. But if you just work hard and you don't stop, your luck will run out. You will collapse at your desk.
You will burn out,
and you will be unfit, and you'll have a heart attack. And what is the point?
I've heard you say before about the importance of embracing failure to be successful, and I felt like my hard work, let's say from I started my business when I was 19 to 25, I was working hard, and that was getting me through the failures faster so that I could learn what not to do, and that then helped me work out what to do. Do you think I'm thinking about that wrong?
It's difficult. I think it's a personal decision. I do actually think that working hard when you don't have knowledge on getting more knowledge is a good investment.
Okay.
But I think the working hard thing needs to be translated into actionable tasks, not into a general philosophy of working hard.
Right.
So, definitely consume knowledge. I think travel, like when you don't have kids, you don't have responsibility. I personally think avoid a mortgage when you're young. Anything that's going to lock you into a location and or into monthly fixed costs and then have to spend money keeping that thing going. Like, just stay light and spend all your money and time, if you can, on learning. Right. And when you describe what you're talking about, in my opinion, what you're really talking about is you learn business. You learn how to make things work. And so that's somehow, to me, an investment in education in the real world, which is that we need more of, and less of university, in my opinion. But that investment. But again, ideally, it shouldn't feel like hard work. Ideally, it should feel like you're just on a journey of discovery. Like, I know some people that go on holiday and they talk about how much work it was to go on holiday. If you're going on holiday and it feels like hard work, then don't go.
Yeah. I should also, I feel, say, because I think it's important to the trajectory of the conversation, that was maybe me from 19 to 25. At 26, I had a breakdown and I went to Peru and I got ill and I was unable to work, virtually bedridden for 3 months. And I'm pretty sure that was not from being ill in Peru. That was because I was just absolutely done with working every minute of every day for 6 years.
Right. Well, there you go. That's, what I'm talking about, partly.
Yeah. Okay, so after Fluid, you've since started 19 companies, is that correct?
I'm now on my 19th business now, yeah.
Wow. Why so many?
Well, I just think I have ADHD, I guess. When I start a business, I think there's a lot of opportunity in kind of, you start a company and let's say my agency business, but I can start an internet business off the back of that. I can start an email marketing business off the back of that. So some of these businesses, like I did one business called Coaster Ads, where we took all the Carlsberg and Heineken beer mats out of all the bars. And we put ads inside the bars instead.
Interesting.
And it was called Coaster Ads. It was massive in Asia.
Yeah.
And it was financial success, that business. It was initially just a hobby. It's one of the 19, and I did it while I was running Fluid. So, it's not one business stops, or one business starts, fails, one business starts, I sell it. Sometimes it's multiple businesses at once.
Are you running any of those businesses? Oh, well, I suppose you mentioned the two that you talked about earlier, but otherwise, are you running any of them yourself?
So, yes, sometimes.
Okay.
Like I invested in a cafe business,
Right.
which was below my office. The first cafe was below my office. So I invested in it, and I used the resources of Fluid to do the branding and the marketing and all the designs of all the competitor to Starbucks kind of stuff. But I didn't run the day to day of the cafe business because I'm not an F&B person, and I was running Fluid. So my model was always invest in someone to run it.
Okay.
If it's not part of my core business. But quite often, and I'm doing this today, I will initially start the business testing it. So I just launched a sweet brand called Busy's.
Right.
So I used my social media to promote it, and then we sold out in all the sweets. And now I know what it costs to promote, and I know what it costs to make, and now I know how it all works. And now I'll bring someone else in to run it.
Okay.
So I could run a low cost experiment. I think the total cost to launch the sweet business was about £50,000.
Right.
So if I hired someone to run that from day one, I would have lost £100,000. But now I've invested 50. I've got the 50 back, and now I know how it all works, and now I know to hire someone to run it. But I will be the investor and the partner on it, but I won't be running it.
How do you find people to run a business like that for you? That sounds like a difficult hire.
Not really.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, maybe it's the social media stuff really helps. I get DMs every day of brilliant people wanting to come and work with us. And I mean, the truth is I have more people that want to work with us than I have roles available. Okay. So yeah, it's not as hard as it sounds. I mean, a lot of it is I won't start it unless I find the right person too. So the sweets business, I've run this experiment. We launched some sweets. We sold them out. I know how it works. If I don't find the right person to run it, then it doesn't happen. It's okay. We might do another little run and have some fun with it and make a little bit of money. Okay. There's no urgency to it. So, but I've just launched a new podcast product, and part of that podcast product is to do a clothing brand.
Okay.
But the person who's doing the podcast is the person who's going to run the clothing brand. So, it's not hard to find people, to be honest. I find that now to be the easiest bit. The hardest bit, of course, is still getting clients, getting people to buy the products, getting people to engage and be interested in supporting what you're doing. That's still the hardest thing. I find talent will come if you've got a purpose and if they know about you.
So your social following massively helps with that?
Massively helps. Recruitment is not my problem.
Okay.
In fact, I've got the opposite problem. I've got probably, without being arrogant, thousands of people that want to work with us or do something with us. I just haven't got the capacity to coordinate all that resource.
So you need hundreds more businesses for all these people to work
kind
in.
Of.
Is there a common thread between the businesses you start? They sound like they're in different industries. Is it just things you fancy doing?
Yeah. So when I was, younger, there was no thread. So I'd start a coffee shop. I would start an internet portal product called ilove.com, coaster ads, Fluid. I did a comic book. And all of them were kind of driven, I guess you could argue, by creative. We had the creative and the marketing ability. So I can make any business work because I had the creative and marketing. But if I look back at that time, it was a bit mad because the businesses didn't have the same mission. Now, all the businesses I'm involved in are basically designed in some way to fund people's dreams and pay for infrastructure to help people for free to do what they love. So the sweets business, all the profit from the sweets business goes to fund people's dreams. All the profit from the clothes we'll sell in the future will go to fund people's dreams. My book that I'm launching, all the profit from that book will go to fund people's dreams. So they're not separate missions. And that's a much more sane way to live.
Okay, you say they'll fund people's dreams. What do you mean by that exactly? How the profits of those businesses are going to do that?
Well, people need money to start businesses. So I've got a platform called Help Bank. It's not a bank, but I would like to give people money and not expect anything back from them. And the way I can do that is by selling sweets and selling books and selling clothes, and all that profit I then can give away to people. Kind of a Mr. Beast for business. If you look at it another way,
Okay, yeah.
it's basically we make money from these things, and then we take that money and we give it to people who have dreams, and it's a reverse bank. We don't do any paperwork. We don't expect people to pay us back, but it's just another way of paying for the infrastructure and being able to give hundreds of people every month money.
That's amazing. How do you decide which people to give money to and which to not?
There's not an exact science right now, that particular part. We have a doorbell in New York City. We have a doorbell about to go live in New Zealand. We have a doorbell in Australia. We have a doorbell in Hong Kong, and we have a doorbell in London. And people walk up to that doorbell, they press it, they pitch their dream, and we watch those videos and we pick people. That's one way.
Wow.
Another way is I randomly walk up to people in the street.
Yeah.
And they tell me their dreams, and we fund them if we can. And and then just generally as we go through life, there's the odd person that connects that has a dream we can help. We give them the money to do it. But I actually think money is sometimes a big excuse for people to start a business. You don't need money to start a business. I mean, agency business, in reality, you need a computer and a client.
Yep.
Like if you do the invoicing properly, you charge 50% in advance and they pay on time. You can get paid for all your costs before you do the work. And then the 50% final payment is your profit, right? So in reality, a service business generally doesn't cost any money to start. I mean, I could build a massive car cleaning business by the end of next week if I started today with no money. So I think it's, money is a bit of an excuse most of the time for people. It helps people come out of fight or flight if they've got a bit of money in the bank, so they don't have to worry about paying for food and accommodation and stuff. But money is just a psychological thing most of the time. That being said, I've spent £1 million building helpbank.com. You need money to build stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's a gradual thing. It's not, for me anyway, I spent 25 years building up companies and businesses, so I've got the money in the bank to build that tech product. I've always wanted to replace the education system. It's just taken me 25 years to get the money to do it.
You said about money not being a necessity to start a business. Why then give people money to start businesses?
Psychological.
And you're happy to give the money even though you don't think that it's actually necessary, it's just psychological?
Yeah. Because, at the end of the day, you need to wake people up some way, right? If people say, I can't start a business because I need £8,000, like, okay, here's £8,000. So now what's stopping you? I mean, I just did a video with someone like that. I just gave them £8,000. I'm like, now what? They're like, okay, I've got no excuse anymore. Actually. That's it. Yeah. And that's fine. It's £8,000 to unplug someone from modern day slavery. I'll do it.
Okay.
Because they're just trapped in the mindset that they have to earn a salary because they've got rent at the end of the month. It's like a trap, right? And human brains, we're the only species that can think ahead and worry. Right? No other species has the ability. A lion doesn't sit there thinking about, well, next week there might be a famine. What are we going to do?
You're just lying in the sun.
I'm going to get 2 jobs just in case. Yeah, you get 2 jobs. Yeah, that's good. Humans are the only ones that think this way. We literally trap ourselves in our own brains. We cause ourselves a lot of anxiety. And a part of it is money is a huge reason, okay? Because it's now all about because basic human rights like accommodation and food and water and electricity, things we can't live without, are fixed monthly costs, right? So now a lot of people have an idea they can't start it because they're paralyzed. Well, if I do it and it doesn't work, I won't be able to make rent at the end of the month, and then I'll be homeless. So sometimes money, even a month or 2 months money, or even being your first client for their service, helps lift that fight or flight off people for a second. And money isn't real anyway. Money is just a transfer of energy. I've noticed that the more money I give away, the more money that comes back my way. Every time I give money away, somehow the following week, twice comes back to me.
Okay.
And, I'm not planning on it. I'm not giving the money away to get twice back the following week. Yeah. It's just happening that way. Energy. It's just energy.
It sounds like with what you're doing, you are trying to create a lot more entrepreneurs, or at least help people who want to become entrepreneurs do that. Do you think entrepreneurship is a good lifestyle for people? Do you think they'd be happier with that life?
I can't be so general about it. And,
Right.
I'm starting with a niche, right? I'm starting with a niche and I'm saying no one's born anything. No one's born a lawyer. No one's born a doctor. To be anything, you need training, you need guidance, you need knowledge, you need access. Okay. And I'm saying that right now, 90% of people are in jobs they hate. And I see people coming out of university feeling like they've had no choice but to go into university. A lot of people feel like no choice. They can't. Tesla couldn't get a job at Tesla, right? You've got to go to university to even stand a chance of getting 90% of the jobs.
Yeah.
So then what happens? People come out with this preconceived idea of what the world based on limited knowledge they've been given, right? They don't even come out of university with financial literacy, for example. And then they're in debt. First experience of money is debt. And so I just want an alternative for people. Like, that's not the only way to live. I want to say, hold on, if you're 18 years old and instead of getting into £50,000 worth of debt, maybe go work with a founder and learn how businesses are built. And maybe, if you want to do a marketing degree, you're a fucking idiot. Like, go work in a company doing marketing or start a little marketing agency or just, help someone with their social media, for God's sake. I mean, don't spend 4 years of your life. I mean, I interviewed someone who was just done a marketing degree. I'm like, what are the 5 ways you make money on TikTok? No idea. How does the algorithm work on YouTube? No idea. How does Shopify work? No idea. I'm like, these are the most important tools in marketing today, and you don't know anything about it. What do you know? I know that in 1999, pets.com collapsed because there wasn't enough people using the internet. What a fucking bollocks. Like, it doesn't make any difference, right? You've just spent 4 years of your life learning about pets.com. I mean, Jesus Christ. It doesn't make sense.
I went to university because it never even questioned, right? It's just absolutely expected.
Well, that's the other thing. It's literally like, it's how do I get away from my parents?
Yeah.
Right? How do I have 4 years of just not knowing what I want to do? So fuck it, I'll just drink. And you know what? I'll get a network out of it. That's the other bollocks they tell you.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, look, for some people, it's a good choice. And certainly, a lot of people say to me, well, if you get a university degree, the stats show you get a higher paying job. That's because everyone has to go to fucking university. If those smart people didn't go to university, they'd still earn more. It's because they had no choice, or they want to get away from their parents. Oh, thank fuck, I can go live in Leeds and get away from my parents for a while. Great. But that's not debt and 4 years of your life. I just think people need another alternative. And that's what I'm trying to build. I'm trying to say, hold on a minute. You can learn this skill, these entrepreneur skills. If you're 18 years old and you start a business, doesn't matter what it is, car cleaning, window cleaning, it doesn't fucking matter. I'm more likely to hire you than some university person that comes out and tells me that they know sales because they went on a course at university about it.
Yeah.
I'd be like, this person spent 3 years knocking on doors, getting windows cleaned. I'll hire that person. They got experience. They know what it's really like. This textbook learning is bullshit. It's a business.
Yeah.
It's just a business. Universities become a massive, massive business that most people feel now like they've got no choice but to do. And so I'm not just trying to make more people entrepreneurs. I'm trying to give people more choice.
Yeah, I went to do a business degree, made it halfway through, realised I was learning nothing about business, and promptly dropped out. So I'm absolutely in agreement with you. You've got children. What if your kids wanted to go to university? How would you feel about that?
We're going to have a talk. I mean, it depends on what they want to go to university for. Right. Yeah. So my son is super smart. Of course he is. And he, if he wants to be a doctor, he's probably got no choice but to go to university. Okay. Which in itself is a problem, by the way. I mean, like, if you're naturally that way inclined, you can heal people. I mean, it's a shame that you've got to go and spend 4 years learning from fucking idiots in university. But that aside, I would actually say to him, look, go to university, but just keep in mind, by the time you come out from university, 6 years learning to be a doctor, you're not going to be a doctor most likely. What you're probably going to be is working for an AI company that is a doctor. So maybe can you just learn AI on the side, or start a little AI business on the side, like educating people about AI? Because with nano robots and AI, most doctors are going to get replaced. I mean, the GP is seeing 50 people a day in this country, right? You think how many mistakes they're making? So many mistakes and diagnosing people all the wrong way. If you've got a machine with big data that can tell you in the area that what's going on and what people are getting, you want to talk to a computer about what's wrong with you. That computer will more likely get it right than a doctor who's fucking tired, had an argument with their husband the day before, now seeing their 38 patient after all day seeing people. It just doesn't make any sense, right? It's like going and doing an MRI with a human. You know, we used to do MRIs with humans. We used to dig in, try and figure out what's wrong with you. Yeah. Now, if I offered you an MRI with a machine, a robot, or that doctor, which one you want? You're going with the machine.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen. So I don't know. I don't think universities really, even if you're going to be a doctor, I would be careful putting all your money on that being the outcome when you come out of university. I think you have to diversify and, again, do a business on the side. I'd say to them, look, just do a little AI consultancy business on the side. And if you go learn to be a doctor, amazing. I'll definitely be able to tell a few people my son's trying to be a doctor. That'll be awesome for me. I just genuinely think that the university is so out of date. It's a big mistake for people to make their whole life bet on that one outcome.
What if he said to you, Dad, you got a lot of money, you can pay for it, I just want to party for the next 3 or 4 years?
I might let him do that.
Okay. I've said that to my wife before, that I might do the same with my son.
I'm more inclined to let him do that. I mean, again,
I agree.
If the university is framed as a 4-year party, then that's fine. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
It's a 4-year party.
Yeah.
I'd say to him, travel the world, not stay in Leeds.
Right.
But, I'd go to Thailand, go to Bali, go to Hong Kong, go see China for yourself. Don't listen to the bullshit media. Go see India. Go see what's happening in America. Just see the world. That's the best education you could have. I'd say spend 2 years doing that. I'd definitely fund that.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about your content journey. So I think that's been really interesting. When did you first start making content? When building this personal brand that you've now got?
Well, I actually set up my YouTube channel 11 years ago.
Right. Okay.
I've been serious about content, I would say, for 4 years now.
Right. Okay.
And I've been super serious for the last 2 years. But my content journey started as I sold my business. I was a little bit depressed. I didn't have a purpose. I was euphoric for about 6 months after selling the company. And then I literally just lost who I was. I don't need money anymore. I'm not the same person now. What am I supposed to do? I don't have people working for me doing what I tell them to do. I don't have clients asking me for my brilliant ideas anymore. I'm literally at home in my big house in London, looking after a baby. I'm like, what the hell's happened? And, as much as I loved being there when my son was born and spending the first 2 years of his life, literally every single day, pushing the pram and being there, I loved it. But equally for my brain and for my, ego I just was lost. And, that's something people don't really talk about when you sell a company. Everyone's dream is to sell a company. I really didn't enjoy the aftermath of it. In fact, I had a bit of seller's regret. I was like, maybe I shouldn't have sold it because it was a nice company. I was proud of the brand. I liked the people. We were making money. I'm like, what? Now I've just got a load of money in the bank. Who gives a fuck? So I had a bit of a crisis, and then I just started going on TikTok and just giving people advice and making TikToks about business knowledge just for fun, really, because it was a new thing. TikTok was kind of new, right? 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And I just was playing around with it because I like playing around. I like to keep myself up to date with marketing and marketing stuff just for fun. And then the one video went viral. I was just giving a bit of advice on how to raise money. And I realized there was a gap on TikTok because everyone else, there's no professional business people on there at that point.
Yeah.
Now everybody's on there trying to be an influencer in business. But I was probably one of the first in the UK to be on there. And yeah, I was just genuinely giving knowledge, a kind of crap version of Alex Hormozy, really. And I enjoyed it. People seemed to get something from it. And I just kept doing it, really. And then things like Clubhouse came along. So I went on there and built a community. And then it just grew. And then I think YouTube's really only hit in the last 6 months. The big thing at the moment, my team are all excited about, if you go on YouTube right now and you type in the word business in the search bar, my video comes up number 1 with 3.5 million views.
Yeah.
So, and that's taken, 11 years since I registered the account, but, it's taken 4 years. to build a significant YouTube channel.
That video is insane. What that has done in the time frame, for context, people don't know, business videos do not get 3.5 million views. They just don't. We've been in talks to have this conversation, and I've been paying close attention. I saw that after 3 days, and it had 800,000, just absolutely exploded. So certainly not a crap Hormozy anymore. Why do you think that video has been so successful?
Well, interestingly enough, I really respect the internet creators out there like Alex Hormozy.
Me too.
They've copied my thumbnail. They're now all doing. Alex Hormozy's was. I think that there's a lot of reasons why it's successful. One of them is how you describe it, right? So it's 30 years of business knowledge in 2 hours and 26 minutes. Right?
Yeah.
No one's watching 2 hour and 26 minute YouTube videos, so no one else has put one out. That's what everyone thinks. Everyone thinks keep it below 10 minutes, right? So we're just going to put out what we've got, right? It's 2 hours and 26 minutes. And people are watching the whole thing. That's the other crazy thing about it. I think the title matters.
Yeah.
30 years of business knowledge in 2 hours and 26 minutes, and it fucking delivers. This is the thing, right? On YouTube, what most people are doing is they give you a little bit of knowledge and then they sell you a course, right? So there's not many videos that are actually like genuinely all the way through knowledge. And at the end, it was just a joke at the time. I was so fucking hungry. I'm going off to eat some chicken now, right? So even that got people laughing, because most of the end of the videos is like, please subscribe, please like. I just say, I'm going to go eat some chicken. I'll see you later. Because there's nothing to sell. I'm just like, and partly I made that video. I get so many DMs asking me all the same questions all the time.
Yeah.
And I just wanted a way of like saying to people, right, look, these questions you asked me, someone else just asked me it. 1,000 people asked me the same question this week. Watch this video. It was literally just to try and help deal with the DM onslaught that I have, to try and give people the knowledge that I just don't have time to explain individually to people. So, but
is that how you planned out the content? Did you use questions that you get all the time to sort of come up with the subtopics within that video?
Not really. I mean, I just broke down all the fundamentals of a business build, and what you need to know, from a basic level to a more sophisticated level. I literally spent 1 hour before that video started recording, just doing top line notes, and then I just talked about it because I know it. And that's the other thing. I mean, I just think there's not that many people, and I'm starting to sound a bit arrogant suddenly. I don't mean to be. It's like there aren't many people on the internet that have genuinely done it.
Yeah.
Actually have the deep knowledge and have the ability to perform on camera.
Yeah.
There's kind of a combination of things you need to make a video like that work, right? And combination, I've been doing it for 5 years, talking on camera, alongside I actually have the knowledge of lived experience. And so I think it's just a unique thing, But I have really been quite proud of the fact that all these big internet creators have now copied. Alex Hormozy's was 12 years of business knowledge in 56 minutes.
Yeah.
So everyone's seen the video at the top and they're like, well, we'll just copy that. So I enjoy that. It makes me smile.
In my my main YouTube channel is all about Facebook and Instagram advertising, meta ads, main service we provide, right? And in my planning document with my editor, there is a video ready to be recorded titled exactly that format. Exactly. I can't remember exactly what it was and how many minutes, but yeah, exactly that format.
That's right. That's actually the biggest compliment I think a creator can get. Like, people think, oh, they copied you. Like, the street content. I was one of the first to do that after COVID. And then another entrepreneur went in the street and I started asking the same questions as me. They got so much hate in the comments.
Right.
This is what Simon Squibb does. This is what Simon Squibb does. Oh, you're just copying Simon Squibb. Everything's a copy of everything.
Yeah.
It
goes around.
Facebook is a copy of MySpace. MySpace is a copy of Friendster. TikTok's a copy of Vine. Like, shut up. There's no original idea. I mean, you can argue that my title on that is an original idea, but it's not really.
Yeah.
That's when I see all these inspirational quotes from people like Steve Bartlett. It's just regurgitated Greek mythology.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. It's just take a Greek mythology quote that is not in modern day language and reposition it as modern day language, and suddenly you're an inspirational leader. There's no original thing. The only original thing you've really got in life is your own experiences. So again, in that video, that's why it's hard for anyone to do anything similar, because it's just, I've lived it. I've invested in 78 companies. I've built 18 companies. I'm now in my 19th. I've done it. I've exited a company, genuinely done it all with no money. You can't make that stuff up. And I'm not selling a course, so it's just easy.
That video, I'm sort of focusing on that a lot, but I found that video absolutely fascinating. Been making business related YouTube content forever, and that one's crazy. And it's made me reassess to some extent my own content creation strategy. I went back through after I saw that video and I saw the length on it, 2.5 hours. I went back through all my videos and I was like, oh, all the really detailed long form tutorials that are 45 minutes plus or an hour plus have low hundreds of thousands of views. And on all these 10-minute videos, which is like what all the YouTube experts will tell you to do, right? These 10-minute videos that are edited right down, that are giving a specific tip about a certain thing, they've got 10,000 views, 15,000 views. I was like, oh, right, okay. I should just do a lot more of these long form tutorials. That's what people really want. Kind of.
I think people that nowadays, again, like everyone was following the Mr. Beast model for a while, which is like, quick. Everything's, massive and crazy and big. And I think when it comes to like knowledge, people just want you to give it to them. Like it. I think I'd rather sit and watch 2 hours, 26 minutes packed with actual knowledge than a Netflix movie. Like it's all right. I'll give up my Netflix movie tonight and I'll watch the Simon Squibb shit and I'll learn and I'll build something. And then tomorrow I'll watch we are sitting down binge watching. I just watched, anyway, it's not interesting for the podcast. I just watched a TV series on Netflix. And, it's probably 3 hours of my life watching that Netflix series. And I've learned nothing. It was entertaining. I've learned nothing. Man falling down. I've learned nothing. It was interesting, learned nothing. Whereas, there is content on YouTube that will change your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put the same amount of time into it. Like, change your life. And so I'm actually really happy that people have actually watched that video. And the retention rate is something like 72%, right? People are watching the whole
72% on a 2.5 hour video. That is incredible.
And again, I think that a lot of it is like we make assumptions about society when it comes to people who don't have attention spans and, no one will listen. And, like it's not true.
Yeah.
It's the same concept that people throw out there. Like, free has no value. You go read the comments of that video.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I proved that is not true. I put a free video out. I made money on the income, so it's not. I made money on it.
Yeah.
But for the people watching it, it's free. And there's this whole argument, especially from people that sell a lot of courses. If you don't pay, you don't pay attention. It's bullshit.
Okay.
And I proved it. Right. What you mean is you've got to put value in free.
Yeah.
And you've got to target the right people that actually want to learn it. Okay. They need to not just want it, they need to need it. Money isn't the reason people do things. Pain is the reason people do things.
Okay. Running away from pain as opposed to running towards a reward.
Well, it's more like people, if they have pain, they will learn. If they're not making ends meet and they're struggling, they need to change. They'll learn. If you've got type 2 diabetes, you will learn to go to the gym and you will figure out how to get back into shape. You need something bad or something to drive you. And so it's not about, sometimes people say, money is that pain. Not really, it's an artificial pain. That's why so many people pay for a gym membership and never go. Right? So what people actually need is pain. So money is a fake form of pain. If I pay 50 quid for something, I should go, but it's all relative. What really causes people to watch a video like mine is they are desperately looking for the knowledge to make their lives better. Their business isn't working and they want to know why, so they watch the video to find out how they can fix it. Or they're trying to start a business and they don't know why it's not happening and they watch that to learn. Like they want to learn, to need it, not just want it, What's
your most valuable social platform? TikTok, YouTube? Or do you not even think about it that way?
I don't think of it that way.
Okay.
I think it's important to have all of the platforms because, for example, a couple of months ago, my Facebook account was hacked. So I've got 1.1 million followers on there. It's probably, it is now again, but it was then as well, probably the most popular platform from an engagement point of view.
Okay.
So, but it got hacked. And interesting, I thought I had 2-factor on it.
Yeah.
It got hacked because there's something called SIM swapping. So I thought the mobile phone was the best way to do 2-factor. It's not the best way. The best way to protect your assets is have an authentication app. So not the mobile phone, because the mobile phone could be SIM swapped.
I had the exact same thing happen maybe a month ago. two-factor
I wish
turned
people
on,
knew.
couldn't believe it.
We should be educated about this. I don't know why this isn't out there. People
Yeah,
think
yeah,
they've got
yeah.
the You put two-factor on, you think, I'm safe now.
Yep.
And then you don't realize if you've done it under your mobile phone instead of doing it under an app, you basically leave yourself exposed because people can get your telephone number and get the message, and then they can get into your account. So anyway, that education aside, I think, I don't. Well, it was like having your arm cut off. Suddenly, there's one less thing I've got to push out the education content that we do, and it was very frustrating. But managed to get the account back. But so I think having all of the platforms, I think each of the platforms month to month, they kind of fight with each other to become more useful and relevant to the user.
Okay.
So, I mean, my original platform that I put my original love into was TikTok. So I've got 2.7 million followers on there. As I say, just a video get 47 million views. It's just insane.
Yeah.
But I find TikTok can be very erratic. I can have one video with 47 million views and then another video with a couple of 100,000 views, right? And so, whereas I find with Instagram, it's pretty consistently high.
Okay.
And it's not. I think the highest one I've had on Instagram is 21 million, but it's not. You can get big numbers on Instagram, but it tends to be more of the way the algorithm works right now. It's more consistent.
Yeah.
Right. It's delivering it to the same people. I think TikTok experiments and delivers it to lots of different people. So I like having Instagram and I like having TikTok, and it's a different audience most of the time. I genuinely, personally, I'm more connected to my TikTok audience just because I have spent so much time with that community. And when I go live, like I'm live now, right, I know the people on the live in the comments. I know them.
Yeah.
I've spent 2:00 in the morning sometimes talking to these people. I know them. Whereas I haven't got that same connection on the Instagram live. Instagram live I tend to do very briefly. But TikTok, I spend hours sometimes talking to people on there.
How are you coping with this, what must be some pretty meteoric rise in terms of fame? That must have changed your life in a number of ways.
Yeah, that has been weird. Yeah, I haven't really talked about this subject much because I'm still digesting it.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. I never set out doing this stuff to be famous. I never wanted to be famous. I always wanted respect business to business. I always wanted to do the right thing in business, so my reputation within a business circle was good.
Yep.
The public is a different thing. I kind of, I wouldn't recommend it to people. I don't think.
Okay.
It's an interesting experience. It does change your life though. Like literally, I'm hiring security at the moment.
Really?
Wow. And I don't want to sound arrogant or like, oh, I'm famous. Like more people know me than I know them. That's what it really means, right? But it's really nice in some respects. People like, I literally was getting my hair cut the other day and someone walked into the hairdresser and started talking to me and like saying how much they like, can I get a picture of me? And like, I'm getting my hair cut now, like
give it a minute.
Yeah, it's kind of, but it's also like kind of interesting, like you get to talk to your community. We did an event at Box Park and we sold out 500 tickets very quickly. And there's 500 people that sit in the audience to want to meet me. It's kind of amazing. But it's also overwhelming, especially when you meet people that are really know you and they watched all my content. They know my backstory. They know, because I go live, my son's in the live a lot. They know my son. They know my story. They know I've just got a puppy. Someone the other day walked up to me and like, love your new puppy. It's so cute. You're like, they know a lot about you. I know nothing about them. So there's that initial, weirdness that I'm still getting used to. But I think I've come to terms with it. I actually had I hired a business coach, and this is one of the things I talked to him about because he helps a lot of people that are very famous. And he said, you've got to make a decision. Stop now, and you'll probably fall out of significance, and slowly no one will give a shit. And you can still do that. You can do that now, right? But if you carry on, you're going to get probably more famous.
Yeah.
You just have to learn to live with this new reality. So get security. Like I have upped the security at my homes just because someone did try to break in, and I just think. But I would like to say though on this subject, just people are really lovely. I feel like I'm in the type of. If I was to be famous, this is the type of fame I want.
Okay.
It's where you're helping people and you're not bullshitting, and you're genuinely on the side of like humans can do anything. I'm not famous for like, I wouldn't want Piers Morgan's fame, for example. Like going at people, slagging them off, fighting with people. I wouldn't. I just imagine you must get some real people that hate him and people that really love him. I don't want those extremes. And so I like being on the right side of history, which is fix the education system and not complain about it, not cause division. I don't want to be like slagging people off to make me famous, which is what a lot of people do. I like the type of fame I've got, which is like, I've got knowledge and I'm going to help you get knowledge so you can have a better life. That's it. So yeah, most people are so respectful and so lovely, but it is super weird, like having so many people now come up to me all the time, and I'm still trying to get my head around it because I thought the only way to be famous was to be on TV. I thought if I was Made in Chelsea or one of those, I'd be famous. Like as an actor on EastEnders, maybe I'd be famous. When I was younger, that's my mind. This social media stuff is kind of blown my mind how you can become so famous just by making some videos on TikTok.
Well, I mean, if you're getting tens of millions of views, there are real people on the other end of that equation. So yeah,
you mentioned global. Like I was just in Portugal, and I'm in Portugal. It's a country that I think it's not really speaking English here. Like it's crazy how many people are coming up to me saying hello. Like it's just blowing. I went to Greece, same. Again, it's not an English speaking place.
No.
Like how I'm just like everybody that's thinking about starting a business or has a business seems to have watched one of my videos. So it's kind of interesting, but I would never recommend it to people. But go into it. I would think fame is very useful if you have a very important purpose that's bigger than you. I actually tell people, and it sounds arrogant, I'm sacrificing my life by being famous. Like my life is worse. I had money and I had anomaly. It's actually better. No one bothers you. I can sit in a cafe and do what I want. No one bothers you. It's actually easier to not be famous and rich than now be famous and rich. Like I've had to sacrifice something. I haven't gained something by being famous. So other than reach, which, can have impact. So make sure what you're working on isn't just about you being famous, right? Because it's not worth it.
Yeah. When you first started creating content, were there any other content creators that you wanted to model from? You mentioned like Mr. Beast, for example, obviously in a different space, or were you just wanting to do your own thing?
Yeah, Mr. Beast wasn't really on my radar 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
The only person I think that I was interested in, but I was getting slightly bored of his content, was Gary Vee.
Okay.
And I think he was the only one that was talking about business and was actually had a business. Like
and a very successful one.
Yeah, and I didn't really like the hustle culture kind of
agreed
technology. But I respected him, and he was doing it. He was putting himself out there. He was motivating people. And so when I started out, I was like, I'll be the UK Gary Vee in my head a little bit. But as things evolved, Gary is an amazing individual, but he's quite different to me, actually.
Yeah.
He's American for a start. But he's very much like he is not a full-time content creator, first of all. Right, he has a business, so he does content to really promote his business, his agency. So, whereas I am full time, making education content and full time doing it. It's like it's a different model, and so But I think to answer your question in a simple way, I mean, I definitely think Gary Vee was on that list. I don't think there was anybody else. There was people I didn't want to be, like Grant Cardone.
Okay, yeah.
But it's nothing personal. I just don't like property in general, and I felt that he was a bit sleazy. That doesn't mean he is. I just didn't like the image that he portrays, and so it was all about a bit of a make money out of property. Everyone can get rich. I don't really like talking that way because I think getting rich is a process. It takes time, and I don't want But yeah, so there's people I didn't want to be like that, and there's people like Gary Vee who I did admire as putting himself out there and taking a risk.
Just quickly, why don't you like property?
That's a very deep subject. How long we've got?
Well, go for it. You can answer as long as as short as you want.
It's okay. So the basic reason is it's quite damaging for society. It's an intellectual issue more than a financial issue. So if, for example, you buy a house and you live in it, we already know, thanks to Rich Dad, Poor Dad and general consensus, most people should know by now that that is not an asset. Technically, it's a liability. So you live in a house, it costs you money, right? So it's forget that you could rent instead. You could live with your parents instead. You could, Liz, I did live in my office for a while. There's those different ways to get rid of rent as well. But that aside, I think I want people to understand the financial aspects of owning a home it's not an asset. And actually, if you look at your mortgage, you'll be horrified to realize, because no one reads their mortgage documents, you don't actually own the home. In fact, the bank is using your home to borrow more money themselves. So they're making interest payments off you, which means quite often you're paying a lot more for your house than you think you're paying for it when you sign the purchase, right?
Yeah.
And the banks, they're not kind organizations designed to help you own a home. They're built to make money out of you. So they have sat there and said, how can we make a human being a battery for our business? How can we make a human being work for us without them realizing they're working for us? I know, we'll give them a mortgage and tell them they own the home. Right? But in the technicalities of it are they don't own the home. And too many people, especially young people, get themselves trapped in a mortgage very young, and they get into a situation where they take their 15 grand they've saved up, and instead of putting it into a business that they can scale up, they put it into a house and lock it up. And then they fall in love with that location, which means they don't go where the opportunity is. So they live in this house and they live where the opportunity isn't, because they own a house there. And then they have monthly fixed costs now. So taking risks gets harder, because if they don't make payments, they lose the house, right? So now young person's trapped in a location, trapped on a fixed payment, and now they actually don't realize it. Every hour they work, they're working for the bank. If you buy a car, they're now also working for the car company. They buy Netflix, that's another hour of their life gone. They've just paid for Netflix. They're selling time, the most valuable thing they've got, to pay for this thing that they think is going to make them happy. Right. So that's one aspect, owning a home. Now let's talk about like buying a home and renting it out, right? Because that's the thing that everyone loves. Oh, but buy a house and rent it out and passive income. Like, why the fuck do you want passive income anyway? What do you learn from passive income? How do you grow as a human, right? If I'd spent my whole career from 20 figuring out how to get passive income, I'd be a fat fuck sitting on a sofa. Like, honestly, what's the point? I don't want passive income. I want to learn, right? I want to learn stuff. I want to grow. How hard is it to buy a house and change the lock on the door and overcharge a nurse for renting it? Squeeze 8% out of a nurse. What's the point? What do you really? That's not real business. Okay, it's not. It's dumb business. And anyone that calls the property business a business, it's not. It's bollocks. And then you have the other side of it, which is like, oh no, I'm making so much money in property. Would you like to buy a property course? I'm thinking, if you're making so much fucking money in property, why are you wasting your time on a Sunday renting out some hall in some shitty hotel to sell people a course?
Yeah.
Just fucking do it free online, mate. You're making so much money in property. Spread the wealth. You stay focused on property. It's all bollocks. So, and then, just the moral side of it, just to end on this, because you opened the can of worms, it's your own fault.
No, it's good.
The other side of it is just like economically, right? If you own a home and you think you're rich because it's doubled in value, yeah? Well, first of all, gold's gone up more since 1974 than houses. So people are a bit confused. But anyway,
okay.
The whole economic cycle, a house and the value of a house, and it goes up, does not contribute to GDP, right? Because a business does. If I start a business and I don't know, whatever it is, it's gardening, I'm buying a fence, I'm buying wood from someone, I'm buying tools, it's money going back into the economy, right? Which creates GDP. But a house value ownership doesn't create any additional income, because people live in it and they sit on it, right? There's no additional income into the ecosystem. What it actually does is just make it more expensive for everybody. And then the people that can't afford a house, the rent goes up. And then you literally have societal fractures, like where, for example, the NHS can't afford to pay nurses more. So nurses, 1/3 of nurses in the UK are getting some sort of food stamp every month to survive. So to do a job that ensures that people live when they go to the emergency tonight, we're squeezing 8% yield out of that nurse to get maximum yield out of a property that they can't afford, but we're not able to pay them more because the NHS can't take the burden. So here's the irony. The guy that's got 20 properties that's getting 8% out of the nurse will fucking turn up to the emergency ward tonight wanting free help to survive, and that nurse will be fucking hungry. And maybe they won't get the help they need. But don't worry, they got 8% out of that nurse. It's just a bad business. And I think if I was Prime Minister, I'd ban buy-to-let. I would
Just ban it outright.
I'd ban it outright. It's not healthy. And it is actually become, property should not be a business. I'm not a socialist. This starts to make it sound like I'm a socialist. I'm not, but we should build social housing.
Okay.
Right? Let's define the difference. And so I just think the whole business it's like the water companies are charging too much for water because there's only one company got no choice but to buy it from that one company, right? Electricity companies, this is a brilliant invention that's supposed to save humanity. Now I've got no choice but to pay some fucking awful electricity company an awful lot of money every month because they're the only one I can get the electricity from. Apparently, Putin invaded Ukraine, so I had to pay double last year.
Okay.
So these basic human rights like property, accommodation, food, electricity, water, they shouldn't be this expensive. It makes it impossible for people to live.
Okay.
Told you not to open that can of worms.
No, that was great. That was very interesting. I feel like, given obviously have very strong thoughts on that, I've got to ask you about taxation. Where are we at with taxation in the UK? And this is surely another can of worms, but I feel like you're going to have some strong thoughts.
Well, no, this one's a little more simple.
Okay.
And I think more people agree with me. I mean, the property business, I've got so many people that hate me because I talk about property this way,
right?
Especially people that have buy-to-let properties. But I think the taxation system is pretty straightforward. Just move to Dubai or set up your company in Hong Kong. I often talk about I don't think I'd be successful today if I'd not set my company up in Hong Kong.
Really?
Because in Hong Kong, for example, it's a flat 15% tax. I personally don't mind paying tax, especially if services are good, which they are in Hong Kong. The underground infrastructure is all pretty amazing. I don't mind paying 15% tax. It's fine. It all works. But they don't have a double taxation system. So the company makes money. I pay 15%.
Yeah.
And then I pay myself the rest, and it's not tax. I don't pay double tax on it. Whereas in England, if I pay myself that as an income, I have to pay tax again on it, right? And then I have to pay VAT. England is so hard to get ahead, and that's another reason I want to fix these little things like property, because it's just so hard for people. It's just literally like people are like, we call them NPCs, right? Living just day to day, just getting up, doing the work, paying the bills, going to bed. And if they can get through the month and make ends meet and have an ice cream somewhere along the way, brilliant. It's literally got that bad. And so I don't know, the taxation system in the UK, it doesn't make any sense. But the good thing is, for the government anyway, people don't realise it, so they're stuck here. And who can afford to fly to Dubai, put a deposit on a flat to rent there, and set up a business? So luckily, the only people that have moved there are all the people that have made money in crypto, or they've realised just leave and go there. So everyone who should be paying tax and can afford to pay tax has left the UK. And everybody who doesn't understand how this stuff works because they weren't taught it in school for a reason are still stuck here propping up the government with VAT and tax income.
Okay.
What do you think about it? I feel like I need some controversial shit on you at this point. Otherwise, I might get taken away by number 10.
On taxes, I think when you start... I went on a journey like a lot of people do where you start earning, you earn a little bit of money for a number of years and you're earning 50 grand a year, and then next year it's 200 grand a year, and next year it's 500 grand. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that tax bill is obscene. And when you work out, as you say, with a double taxation, that between 25% corporation tax and then 39% dividend income tax on the remainder, you're paying more than half. That just seems painful. I still live in the UK and pay tax in the UK. We didn't want to move, me and my wife. But the more my income increases, the more difficult paying that tax bill is. So
and it's just, I wouldn't mind if there weren't potholes everywhere or people weren't suffering. You know, if the money that we're paying in tax actually went and did some good, I wouldn't mind. I quite like Switzerland's model. People have a good life. And I don't know. I feel like, England's broken right now. I'm hopeful it will turn around, but it's I'm also paying tax in England. I've just accepted it, but I know that financially I should probably move to Hong Kong or Dubai, and long term I'll make millions more if I do that. So if I made millions more, that'd be millions more I could give away to people that actually need it directly to them. This is why people end up, in people like Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates. They do philanthropy. So they take money and they don't give it to the government. They put it in organisations that then they decide where the money goes, right? But again, in England, there's no tax structures to support that sort of initiative.
A lot of my contemporaries, people who've got YouTube channels on digital marketing and they've set up an agency or whatever, so many of them are in Dubai right now. I would say more than, of all the ones that I've known I all knew them in the first place in the UK, more than half have gone. And I think if I didn't already have a son and another one on the way, then me and my wife would have gone. But we will see. Who knows?
Yeah, it's a problem because anybody who's successful in England right now is thinking this.
Yeah. And that can't be good for the country.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I am born here. I do love this country.
Yeah.
For some reason, I do wonder why, but I do. And it's got a good sense of humour. Sometimes what I think that's the default. It's got a good sense of humour, but I just want to fix it, But I do think it starts with education and the government stuff. I mean, I actually have dialogue with Number 10. Okay. I'm up for helping. I don't want the country to collapse. I don't want people to be in this pain, but I also don't have much hope that any political party is going to make an effort to fix it because it requires guts.
Yeah.
And these people want to hold on to power, and I'm not sure that their motive is to fix problems. Their motive is to stay in power. And you stay in power by just ignoring a problem, not dealing with it.
Yeah, and all those people that I mentioned that have left, I'm pretty sure that if you just had a flat 25%, let's say, and didn't have the double taxation, I don't think most of them would have gone. And then you'd be getting 25% off.
Yeah, I mean, it's people. Then that's what people misunderstand when these people that do offshore things, and no one minds paying reasonable tax.
Yeah.
I'm happy to pay reasonable tax. I want to contribute.
To
society. It's a way of giving back.
Yeah.
But when you feel like you're working your guts out and you've got nothing to show for it at the end of it, that's one type of profile. And then the other type of profile is like, why would I stay in the UK? If I'm going to make £3 million this year, I'm going to give £1 million to the government, or I move to Dubai and I can give £1 million to the people. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely a problem. And brain drain right now. I was just in Dubai. So many smart people have moved there. It's a real shame for the UK, and it's going to get worse if they don't do something about it.
Final question I wanted to end on. If you started again today with nothing, no contacts, no money, etc., what would you do?
Go live on TikTok every day, just talking shit, probably. I mean, I depends on what, have I got skills or not? Have I got any skills, or I'm back to I had no skills like I was when I was 15?
Yeah, exactly. You could put yourself a little bit older than 15 maybe, but yeah, let's say you don't have skills you can just readily use.
Do I have a six pack?
Go on then, you can have one.
Got a six pack? Yeah. Simple. I just go live on
with the six pack out.
Yeah, pretty much. And I'll probably get a DJ thing and stand in the middle of Leicester Square or something. Build up a big channel, get some revenue from that. There's just so many ways to make money now. Okay. If you're young and you've got a phone in your hand, Jesus Christ, you're living in one of the most exciting times in history. That's the other thing that people don't realize, right? That's another reason I'm on this mission. It's people just don't realize how much freedom they could potentially have. They're trapped in this whole, I better get a job because I've got the rent to pay, right? It's you've got so many choices. So yeah, if I had a six pack, younger me, I've got a phone, I'm in Leicester Square tonight doing a DJing with my top off.
Okay. Well, maybe someone will hear this and they'll go do exactly that. Yeah, it's
an inspirational idea. You can have that one for free.
Fabulous, Simon. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate you taking the time. And that's been great. That's been really interesting.
You're welcome, man.
I love having chats like these, but I'd like to know what you think as well. So let me know in the comments below. If you want to watch another one of my podcast episodes, you can do so right here.